Facebook Live. I'm Dan Roshan with Get Rock Solid Coaching. And today I'm going to be joined with Mr. James Hoteling.
You got it. Hoteling.
Hoteling. That is the coolest name, man. How you doing today, James?
I'm excellent, thanks. I'm glad to be here, Dan. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. So what I know about you, James, and we had a little bit of technical difficulty, so we just met like, I don't know, 30 seconds ago.
Yeah.
But I do know that you've been coaching in real estate. I know you coached for Mike Ferry for about 4 years. I know that you've been coaching since 1997, and in your first year as a real estate agent a few years ago, you sold 45 homes, 45 families that you helped.
I did.
And you did so in an area that you didn't know a lot of people. You recently moved into that area. Is that all correct?
That is all correct. Yeah, it was quite an exciting story, I have to say. You know, very, very fun times. But they're all fun times.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So thanks again for joining me. So tell us a little bit, really what my intention today is to learn a little bit about you, about your journey. How many people have you coached, would you estimate at this point in your career?
Oh, gosh. A one-on-one, I would say 1,000, 1,200 maybe, probably
1,000.
something like that.
You got a one-on-one relationship with 1,000, 1,200 people, something like that. And I'm assuming you've learned a lot from that.
I've learned a ton. Yeah, I tell my clients all the time, I learn a lot more from just being engaged with them on a daily and a weekly basis than you can ever read or experience on your own. Yeah. It's always a learning experience, that's for sure.
Well, fantastic. All right. Well, let's just jump into the conversation if we could. So James, if you, and I appreciate you, again, for being here, because I know you have a ton of experience and wealth of knowledge to share. So let's just jump into it. If you were let's start with a new agent, and then I'm going to ask about a seasoned agent with moderate success, and then maybe a top rainmaker.
Okay.
If you were a new agent today, what's the one thing that you would do in your career so that you believe that everything else would be either easier or unnecessary? What would you start with?
I think about that a lot, believe it or not. I do. I think, quite honestly, I would start with just door knocking and getting out and talking to 30, 40, 50 people a day. I mean, it's so important to not disregard the numbers game. You know what I mean? Like, even in a day of technology and all the things that we have available to us, this business is still a people business. You got to get in front of people. You got to find out who wants to, buy a property, sell a property. And I always loved door knocking. I thought it was just a great way to get, in front of people and use your communication skills. So I am sure if I started that's what I would do.
So give me an example of how you would approach that. So I'm at home. I'm eating my Cheerios, kicking back on my couch. You're knocking on my door. You're coming up. What are you saying to me?
Yep. Well, if you're an expired, obviously there's a whole script for that. If you're just Joe Schmo on a street where I'm looking to find some business, I'm just going to say, hey, my name is James. I'm with XYZ Realty, and look, I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm not here to try to convert you. I really just wanted to stop by and let you know we have buyers that are interested in purchasing a house. I was just curious, do you happen to know anybody at all right now that's talking about selling, maybe in the near future? And you're going to say whatever you say, and then I'm going to say, hey, great, I just appreciate you taking a second. Hey, before I let you go, what about you guys? Do you have any thoughts? Do you have any plans? Have you considered doing anything yourself in the near future? And depending on where the conversation goes, I might try to add you into my people farm, and just say, hey, do you happen to have anybody that actually stops by like this and keeps you up to date on the market or kind of lets you know what's going on? And if they say yes, I'm going to say, great, have a great day, goodbye. And if they say no, I'll say, well, look, I'd love to be a resource for you. I've got a lot of people that ask me to keep in touch with them, let them know what's going on. Is that something you'd be open to?
Awesome. Thanks, James. So that's what I hear you for a newer agent. Strategy one is just belly to belly. Go out and speak with as many people as possible. Is that right?
And build your database. Build a group of people that you can continue to stay in touch with and drip information on and brand yourself. And then those business opportunities will kind of come to you as long as you stay in front of them.
Sure.
And again, that's just one approach. Obviously, there's things like expireds and for sale by owners and all of that stuff as well. But it is still about identifying the people that need your help. You're there for a reason. You're there to help people. So you got to go find out who needs your help.
Okay. So what if I have a moderate amount of experience. I'm selling 10, 12, 14 homes a year.
Yep.
and I'm working on my own. What would be relevant to me if that was me in that case?
Well, at that point, you do have a few people that you can tap into, right? So you want to make the most of those relationships. So now you can do things like take somebody to lunch every month. You can get face to face with them that way and just say, hey, what can I do to bring value to your life? Do you know of anybody that's looking to buy or sell? So really the message kind of stays the same. It's just the group of people that you might do that with is going to change a little bit as you develop your business. Mm-hmm. At that level, 12, 15 deals a year, you don't really need an assistant. You don't necessarily need to leverage yet. So I think it's still just focusing on the success you have had and leveraging that. The other thing that's interesting, I tell agents that are maybe in that range, let's say 15 deals a year. And in this business, we're always hearing about people who are selling 100 deals a year, 100 houses, right? And so for the person that's doing 15 deals, they tend to not want to talk about that. You know what I mean? They tend to say that as if they're ashamed that they only did 15 deals. And I'll say to them, well, let me ask you a question. How many homes does the average agent sell in your market? And if your market is like most markets, they're probably selling 4 or 5 houses a year, right?
Yeah.
So the good news is you're already outselling the average agent 3 to 1. So why don't you own that and talk about that and market that? When you put out a marketing piece on yourself, just say, hey, look, the average agent will sell X number of homes. And because of what I do, I'm able to help 3 times the number of families to buy or sell property. I'd love the chance to add you to that group. So it's like you talk about what you do have to offer. You got to sell what you have.
Yeah, love it. So you mentioned leverage. So you say 15 homes, we're not ready to leverage yet. How many homes do you think that we would be before we're ready to make that first hire? And who would that first hire be?
Yeah. Well, if you're very heavily invested on the listing side, right? If most of your business comes from listings, you can probably get up to, I'd say at least 30, 35 deals a year. Yeah. On your own without really having to leverage too much. If you get your systems down and you know what you're doing, but if you're maybe 50-50 listings and buyers, now you're starting to take up a lot more time putting, a bunch of buyer sales together. So you might need to get that first part-time person a little sooner. But basically, here's the thing. If your goal is to become a stronger listing agent, you got 2 things that will tend to get in the way. Too many buyers and too much paperwork, right? Okay. So you got to decide, do you want to get that showing assistant, that buyer's agent to take some of those things off your plate first? Or do you want to get the help on the administrative side, right? And you kind of got front end, back end. You got the marketing on the front end and all the stuff you do to promote your listings. Then you got the TC work on the back end. Yeah. So I guess, what I usually tell my clients is get some part-time admin help at first. Just get some of that paperwork off your plate. You can still work some of the buyers, but there's so much necessary evil in this business, so to speak, that, hey, if you can leverage that 5, 10, 15 hours a week to start with, it just means that's that many more hours you can be in front of people.
Sure.
Yeah.
What about a rainmaker? What about somebody who's doing, say, 48 units plus?
Yeah.
What type of advice would you give that individual?
Well, there you're at a point where you definitely need probably front and back end. You need someone helping you with the transactions, and you definitely need somebody helping you coordinate photography and coordinate getting the whole marketing campaign launched and all of that. So at that point, you're definitely at a full-time person, and I would say probably at least one, if you don't already have one buyer's agent or showing assistant or somebody to take a lot of the time-consuming stuff off of your plate as far as buyers go. So you're at that point now where, again, 80% of your day, that's what I always try to get clients to understand, is that your time is a commodity. Your time is an asset. And just like you would look at your financial situation and you'd say, hey, where do I invest my money to get the best return? You have to treat your time just like it were any other commodity. And you have to ask yourself, where do I invest my time to get the highest rate of return?
So time is an asset, is what I hear you say.
Time is an asset. It is. It's like gold. It's like cash. It's like anything else that you would invest, because you can earn a certain ROI on an hour of your time, but that ROI depends on what you're doing with it, right? So the more time you can spend in high productive activity, the better your ROI.
Would you agree with this observation that I've made, is that those really high achievers actually value their time almost even more so, or I mean, I take the word almost out of, but they value their time more so than their money.
Yeah.
In many cases. Would you agree with that?
Yep, 100%. Because
Yeah.
again, if you've got the opportunity to spend, again, let's say you've got a full-time assistant and you're paying them, 40,000 a year or whatever it is for, doing a really good job for you. And a lot of agents think, oh my gosh, 40,000, I don't know that I can afford that. I don't know that I want to spend that. But then you break it down and you say, well, let's look at how many hours a week that would save you. And if you invest that back in, you got a 10-to-1 rate of return on that. So anytime you can spend money and get a great ROI, you need to do it.
Yeah, and I would break that down even further. It would be, it's not even 40,000 that's your risk, is really 10,000, because if within the first 3 months they're not performing and improving your business, then they're not the right fit. Would you agree with that?
Right. Yep, 100%. You should always put anybody you bring on needs to be on a what do I want to say, like a test. You know what I mean? You're testing them, or at a trial period, so that you got to evaluate after 90 days. And if they're a good fit, great, you keep them. You may even give them a raise. And if they're just not working, they're not doing what you need them to do, then you move on, for sure.
All right. Well, thanks for running through those with us. So let's talk about some of the lessons that you've learned from your clients and through your own journey in your career. I'm sure that you have seen, and I always use the word perceived when I say success, because that's you're outside looking or inside looking out, or whatever the case may be. But what would you say would be the common traits of somebody that you perceive to be successful in real estate sales?
The common traits. Well, I would say one of them for sure is kind of what we just talked about. They have a clear understanding of the value of their time. And not just an understanding, but they act on it. You know what I'm saying? They design their day based on maximizing the use of their time. I think that's one of the most common things that I see. I guess one of the other common traits would be that they understand that this is still a sales business, that we are still salespeople. And selling is not, here's the problem. Most people have this dirty conception of selling where you're trying to create in someone a need that doesn't really exist, and then you try to fill it with a product or service that doesn't really deliver. And that's what everybody's afraid is going to happen. But when we understand that, hey, we do have something of value, okay, in terms of our knowledge, our experience, our ability to help them with one of their most important events in their life, and there are people out there who genuinely need that help. So our job is to go find them and then show them how we will fit that need. But I think a lot of agents just shy away. They don't want to be identified as a salesperson. They don't want to label themselves that way. But I find that the top agents are okay with that. They embrace that, and they use their powers for good. Let's put it that way, right?
I love it. Use your power for good.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess the other common trait, if you want to call it that, is that they are always learning. They're always looking to figure out what they don't know, right? Because as you get more successful, there's that tendency to sometimes feel like you've got it all figured out, right? And there's always a lot of somebodies that knows more than you know, or is doing more than you're doing, or can open up your exposure, I guess. So I think that's another pretty common trait that I've noticed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So learning based would be one of the traits that you've seen in successful people.
For sure. Yeah, learning based, and again, seeing the value of what they do and understanding that they almost have it's almost a disservice if they don't utilize their time and their strengths to the potential that they have. You know what I'm saying? Like it's almost a disservice to those people that need their help, that are out there looking for a great agent, looking for a great person to guide them.
What about pitfalls? What have you seen the most common traits of an agent that, I mean, as you know, and I know, and most everybody in the business knows that a lot of people get into this business and do not succeed. So what do you say, stops them from their success?
I think one of the common things that I see is unrealistic expectations, maybe, and failed expectations. In other words, they think it's going to happen faster than it does really happen. And when it doesn't happen as fast as they think it should, they get discouraged. And they don't know how to leverage themselves out of that state of discouragement or frustration. And so they just don't keep going. They quit too soon. And I think a lot of times people, especially when the market's really good, and we always see this, right? The market gets good, and then all of a sudden there's hundreds of thousands of new agents. Everybody's an agent because they all see the opportunity. And what they don't realize is that even though the market might be good, it's still a lot of work to go out and build a business, right?
A little bit.
Yeah, and they think it's going to be this easy, everybody's doing it, everybody makes money, and then it doesn't work out that way and they give up. So I think for a lot of agents, that's it. When they hit the wall and they realize what it really takes to be successful in real estate, they decide, I guess that's not really what I signed up for.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that's, and I guess the other thing too is lack of direction for sure. I've said to clients for a long time that, your passionate desire might be to see the sunrise, but if you're so busy sprinting west, you're never going to see it, right? You're doing all this work. You're doing all this work, but you're going the wrong direction. And no one ever told you that, hey, no, you got to be doing this, and so
what would a commonality be of what that doing this would be?
You mean doing the wrong thing? Is that what you
or
mean?
rather doing the right thing. I mean, we talked about door knocking, belly to belly. We talked about contact sport, but if you were sitting there saying somebody's, I guess it's like mistaking movement for achievement is what I'm understanding you saying.
Yes. Yeah.
What would the twist be where I'm moving, I'm doing activity, not achieving the results? What's the difference between that person and the person that is achieving results?
Well, I think they understand what they understand how to utilize the task to actually get traction. So for example, somebody might spend 4 or 5 hours a day on social media, but they're really not doing anything to utilize that tool to its potential to attract potential clients. They're just looking through Facebook and making comments and watching silly videos and, maybe putting out the occasional post, but there's no game plan for how am I going to use social media to actually increase my brand and attract customers and whatever. Or take the door knocking, for example. They might go out and they might get in front of people, but they never ask any sort of relevant sales questions. They'll just say, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I just wanted to bring you a market update. And they don't do the next step or two that's needed to actually find out if that person has to buy or sell property. They're afraid to ask the question, or they don't want to be pushy, or whatever the case might be. So they do all this work and they make all this effort, but it never really gains the traction that it could if they just did that next thing or knew to take the next step. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, absolutely. So what I hear is like door knocking, asking that next question.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, what are your real estate related plans?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or just going out and smiling and having handing someone the old joke in the old days used to be the packet of seeds, right? Or the recipe. Here's the recipe of the month. Just wanted to make sure you had the best recipe for cranberry bread. Well, what does that do to, gain any traction in terms of identifying them as a potential seller or buyer? Yeah. So there's a lot of that stuff that agents will feel like, oh my gosh, I put in such a busy day, it was such a long day. And so there's a lot of motion, but like you said, there's no real productivity. And doing a lot of other administrative tasks. They will spend all day, running around helping stage a property or shoot their own photos or do all these things that really should be the job of somebody else. Now, they may not have somebody else yet, but that doesn't mean it should take you all day. So they're very inefficient. They may spend a lot of hours, but they're doing things taking a lot longer than they need to take. Let's put it that way. They don't have that hunger, that drive to get this stuff done and get back to productive activity as quickly as they can. So
what would you describe as productive activities specifically?
Well, probably the top 4 would be lead generation, which again is just figuring out who in your community needs to sell or buy a house or property, right? The second one would be lead follow-up, okay? Because most people you meet, they're not ready to do it today. So you've got to nurture them, stay in touch with them for some length of time. The third thing would be ultimately, of course, going on appointments, getting in front of people to try to present what you do. Negotiating contracts, I think, would be another super productive activity. And then the other part of that is spending time on yourself. That's all in your business, but there's a lot of value in spending time on your business. So that could be learning. It could be writing out your goals. It could be tweaking your business plan. There's a lot of things, right, that are still very valuable activities, but they don't, it's not prospecting based. It's not follow up. It's not going out and getting contracts signed, but it's building up you. And that's certainly a good place to invest your time.
Thank you. I'd agree with those four, and I would add a fifth, which is, you sort of said it, which is scripts and role play, and you change that to education, which I agree with as well. It's just developing your craft and developing your skill set.
Sure. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. We are professionals, and the only way professionals get better is through practice, right?
Absolutely. Do you have a mentor?
Yes and no. I don't have an active right now. I'm kind of in between, in a sense, mentors, I guess you could say. For a long time, I would have said that Mike Ferry, is and he still in a way is, but I don't have a set person, let's put it that way, every single week that I talk with or engage with. But I do a lot of reading, and I do a lot of just studying the industry, studying what's going on. So it's funny you say that, because it's one of the things that I guess kind of started thinking to myself, that I almost feel like I need to find that next person, if you will, to be more of a true mentor, in that sense.
What type of books you mentioned that you do a lot of reading. What books would you suggest?
Well, for me, part of what I see my goal is being, or my job, is to help my clients make better decisions. So in a way, I almost see myself as much of a psychologist as I do a coach, because I've just realized the undeniable chain between our thought life and our results. And so part of the biggest challenge I see agents having is there's a break in that chain between their thinking and their actions, or between their actions and their results. So a lot of what I tend to read, for example, I'm reading a book called Switch: How to Change When Things gets Tough. And it's all about what goes into creating change. And if you've identified something that has to change, but you don't really know how, there's, a process you can go through, right, to create change. I'm also reading Grit right now, Angela Duckworth. And again, it's just identifying what are those core traits, and what goes through the mind of somebody who is achieving a lot of great things, and how can we replicate that? Because if we can learn how to replicate the thought process that somebody that's doing a lot has, then chances are that's going to lead to us being able to replicate their actions, and then ultimately get to replicate their results. So I guess as a coach, I probably read some things that may be a little different from what I might suggest my clients read.
What would you suggest for a client to read?
One of the best books in the last few years was Fanatical Prospecting. That definitely, it just hits the nail on the head when it comes to this core activity in our business, that you are a salesperson. You need to go find the people that need your help. So that was a great book. There's another one. Frank Betchker wrote a book many years ago called How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Real Estate, or in Sales, excuse me. And that's just a great book, that just kind of outlines the whole evolution and process of pulling yourself up and being able to move in a direction and accomplish great things. So those two come to mind for sure. But man, there's so many books, right? There's, the E-Myth. Michael Gerber, those books were fantastic. And, there's a great book by Rick Pitino, the basketball coach, Success is a Choice. And man, that was such a great book when it came out, and still is. So there's a lot of them. It's hard to nail them down. You know what I mean? It's like I could keep my clients busy all the time reading, or I can say, okay, read a little bit and then go to work, right? So
yeah, it's like learn, take action, assess, adjust, repeat.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
It's funny that you say Michael Gerber, because I'm actually reviewing that book right now. It's in my book bag over on the other shelf there. It's been a few years since I've read it.
Yeah.
And I'm reading it again right now, so I'm enjoying that.
Yeah, it's a great one.
So James, I want to know a little bit more about you. What brings you joy in life?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is my relationship with the Lord. For me, that's a big part of my life, my faith in the Lord. So I take a lot of joy in that. My wife, is super supportive, incredible. She just does so much, to help in terms of the kids, in terms of my business. And so I purposely set up my schedule every week to make sure I've got time carved out for for us to spend together. The kids, our kids, we have 3 incredible kids. They're all teenagers right now. So there's a lot of joy that comes, a lot of angst too that comes with that. It's sort of the mixed bag you get with teenagers, but they're good kids. So that is definitely another source of joy for my wife and I, for sure. Yeah. And my business, my business too. I really truly love what I do. I love being able to take what someone's bringing to the table and give them some guidance, give them some direction, give them some accountability, and say, look, if you just go do what I'm talking about and come back and let's talk about what happened, we can keep you on the path to where you want to go.
James, what are you afraid of? What do you fear?
It's funny. I don't really find myself living in a state of fear. I think one of the things I guess that I kind of fear is, and most of our fear comes from our lack of being able to control, right? Whatever. I mean, if we are confronted with a situation where we feel like we don't have a lot of experience or a lot of control, that generates fear. So for me, I think, quite honestly, the potential direction of the industry for agents. I mean, I just see so many things changing about the way that we go out and create value, the perception of value that real estate agent brings to the table. I just wonder sometimes where the industry will be 10, 15, 20 years from now, as far as are agents still going to be able to go out and do the same thing and earn the same commission and build I mean, this has been such an incredible industry. I mean, where else can you go and have the ability to build your own business with very, very little startup and earn the kind of income that you can earn in real estate? I've said for years, having a real estate license is a lot like having a winning lottery ticket. You just need to choose to cash it in, right? If you just leave it at home in your drawer, you're not going to get very far. But so I don't know where the industry is really going. I mean, everybody can speculate. We can see things happening with Zillows and Redfins and all these companies and the internet. And so I guess if I had to say what do I fear, it would be just wondering if real estate as we see it today is going to be at all the same 10, 15, 20 years from now. And I don't know. Everything changes, I guess, but that's just what comes to mind when you ask that question.
My full belief, James, is that there's opportunity within that change, and if we can be mindful of the understanding that we are in a revolution right now in regards to the way that the world is changing.
It is,
and it's not just artificial intelligence. It's not just technology. It's the way that the technology is being utilized.
Yes.
It's the way that the technology and the information is cross-pollinating.
Yep, for sure. So, and you're right. There's always opportunity. You just need to figure out what it is and try to be involved in it and find a way to use that opportunity to continue helping other people and providing for your family and everything else.
So if you knew that absolutely you could not fail, what would you do?
If I knew that I couldn't fail, I think for me, I would probably, I've always loved helicopters. I've always loved flying, or the idea of flying, getting my license to fly a helicopter. So for me, I think that would be, that's definitely on the bucket list. And I think just to be able to do that and experience the world from up above like that and kind of zoom in and zoom out. And I don't know, that's just such an interesting, thrilling vision that I have, I guess I could say.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, James, thank you for sharing your wisdom today with us and for, really having this conversation with me. If I'm a real estate agent and I wanted to get in touch with you, learn more about how you may be able to help me, how could I connect with you?
Well, that's a great question. And I appreciate you asking that, seriously. Facebook is probably one of the easiest ways. Just go to Facebook, type in my name, that little sign right here will pop up and you'll know you're on my business page. So you can message me, you can follow me there. I have a website, CoachJamesHoteling.com. You can go check it out. There's, some videos, there's some free materials you can download. You can connect with me that way. So yeah, I mean, if somebody is thinking along those lines, I welcome the chance to talk to them and find out where they're at, find out where they want to go, and see if we can help build them a plan to get there.
And who specifically would be an ideal client for you?
I think an ideal client is somebody who has accepted the fact that they're not where they want to be and they're willing to do the work necessary to get there. And that could be a brand new agent, or it could be one of those 50 to 70 deal a year agents who just wants to go further, and they're willing to make some changes. They're willing to think outside the box. They're willing to do the work to get there. That's because coaching isn't a magic pill. And I think a lot of times people sign up for it thinking that, oh, I've got a coach now. So, automatically my business is just going to blossom and skyrocket and the real estate fairy is going to sprinkle the dust on me. But you need to be prepared to work. And so that's the ideal client.
Cool, man. Thanks again for joining us.
You bet.
And I look forward to continuing our relationship and seeing how we can help each other. And
yep.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.